New York City never really sleeps. It just blinks. And on one of those sleepless nights, Ethan Cole sat by his apartment window, staring at the skyline that once inspired him. Now, it only reminded him of what he'd lost. 3 months ago, his architecture firm collapsed. He had poured years of his life into it, his dreams, his pride, his identity. Now it was gone. He held his coffee cup tightly, whispering, "What's the point of building anything when it all eventually breaks?" The city below buzzed with light and laughter, but inside him, there was silence. Ethan tried pretending everything was fine. He updated his LinkedIn, smiled at old colleagues, told his mother on the phone, "I just needed a break, Mom." But he knew the truth. He wasn't taking a break. He was breaking. His apartment, once filled with sketches and models, was now covered in dust and unopened mail. He had stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping, and most importantly, stopped believing. Every failure replayed in his mind like a cruel movie. If only I had worked harder. If only I hadn't trusted them. If only... He didn't realize he was whispering to himself when he said, "Maybe I'm just not enough." One morning, after another sleepless night, Ethan packed a small bag. No plan, no direction, just an old car, a few clothes, and a need to disappear. He drove for hours past cities, towns, and highways until he reached the ocean, a small coastal town in Maine. When he stepped out of the car, the sea breeze touched his face. Cool, salty, real. For the first time in months, he took a deep breath. He rented a small cabin overlooking the shore, and for the first time in a long while, he was alone. Not with his failures, but with himself. Every morning, Ethan walked to a nearby cafe. It was small and cozy, the kind of place that smelled of cinnamon and hope. That's where he first saw her, Maya Thompson. She sat near the window, painting quietly, her canvas reflecting the light of the sea. Sometimes she'd smile at strangers who passed by. Sometimes she'd just sit and observe the world, as if listening to its heartbeat. One morning, their eyes met. She smiled. He nodded awkwardly. That small, wordless exchange became their daily ritual. It happened on a rainy afternoon. Ethan walked into the cafe drenched, holding his laptop and a mess of frustration. Maya looked up and laughed softly. "You look like you fought the rain and lost." Her voice had a warmth he hadn't heard in a while. He chuckled. "It's been that kind of year." They talked about coffee, the ocean, and art. But soon their words drifted to deeper things. Failure, loneliness, purpose. At one point, Ethan said quietly, "I used to build skyscrapers. Now I can barely build the strength to get out of bed." Maya looked at him with soft eyes and said, "Maybe you're not meant to build tall things anymore. Maybe you're meant to build something deeper." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Maya's words echoed in his head. He walked to the beach. The ocean roared beneath a silver moon, wild, endless, alive. He whispered into the wind, "Deeper." But how? The waves answered in their own language, crashing, retreating, returning. He realized even the sea breaks, and yet it always comes back. Maybe peace wasn't about never falling apart. Maybe it was about returning, again and again, no matter how many times life washed you away. The next day, Ethan bought a sketchbook. He began drawing again. Not buildings, but feelings. Waves, faces, quiet corners of the cafe. Maya noticed and smiled. "That's progress," she said. He laughed. "Progress? I'm doodling emotions," she grinned. "Exactly. You're feeling again." Each drawing was a step, a bridge back to himself. One afternoon, Ethan got a call. A former colleague from New York. "Hey, Ethan. I heard you're freelancing now. Want to collaborate?" His hands trembled. He wanted to say yes, but fear whispered, "What if you fail again?" He hung up. Maya saw the hesitation on his face. "Fear again?" she asked softly. He nodded. She picked up a small stone and threw it into the ocean. "See that? That's how you let go. You don't argue with fear, you release it." Days later, Maya gave Ethan an envelope. "For when you're ready," she said. That night, he opened it. Inside was a simple note. "You are not your failures, Ethan. You are the courage that rises after them." Tears blurred his vision. For the first time, he didn't resist them. He finally allowed himself to feel human again. Weeks passed. Ethan began sketching building concepts again, not for money, but for joy. He started sharing his ideas online. Slowly, messages poured in, people who connected with his story of loss and rebuilding. He felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. One evening he said to Maya, "You helped me find peace again." She smiled. "No, Ethan, you just stopped running from yourself. Peace was always waiting." A few weeks later, Maya told him she was moving to California for an art exhibition. Ethan felt a quiet sadness, but this time he didn't cling. Instead, he said, "You helped me see light when I thought it was gone." She smiled softly. "You were the light, Ethan. You just forgot to shine." Months later, Ethan walked along the same beach, alone, but at peace. He carried his old sketchbook. The sun dipped into the horizon, painting gold across the waves. He whispered, "Maybe peace isn't found in silence, but in learning to live with your own noise." He smiled, not the smile of victory, but of acceptance. A year later, Ethan's designs were featured in a sustainable architecture magazine. The title read, "Building Spaces That Heal." He wasn't chasing fame anymore, he was creating meaning. He donated part of his earnings to an art program supporting young artists, Maya's idea. Sometimes he still wrote her letters, not to seek comfort, but to share gratitude. One morning, a package arrived at his doorstep. Inside, a painting. It was of the ocean, glowing under moonlight. At the corner, her handwriting, "Peace isn't found. It's built, one quiet moment at a time." He smiled, framed it on his wall, and whispered, "Thank you, Maya." Years later, Ethan stood before a hall full of young architects. He ended his talk with these words, "We spend our lives building walls, towers, and dreams. But the strongest structure you'll ever build is the peace within yourself." The audience rose in applause, and as he walked off stage, he saw sunlight breaking through the clouds, quiet, gentle, infinite, the same light he once thought he'd lost. Moral: self-worth isn't found in success. It's built through acceptance. Inner peace isn't about escaping the storm. It's about learning to stand calmly with